Good morning, everyone. Today we have the immense pleasure of having Dr. N. Akila with us. Ma'am is Senior Scientist and Head, Krishi Vigyan Kendra, Namakkal. And the topic chosen for deliberation by Ma'am is successful intervention in climate-resistant agriculture and sustainable production. Ma'am, you are audible as well as visible, and your presentation is also visible. Please start.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning to all. And already I came to know this group is a diversified group, start from students to faculties. Some are working in extension units and some are in universities. So, I don't know how best this topic will be interested to all. But anyhow, for the next 60 minutes, I'll try to justify this topic. So, successful interventions in climate resilient agriculture and sustainable production. So, regarding climate and climate change, since many years we are talking, more than a decade. So, almost everyone knows climate is changing, greenhouse gas emission, global warming, many terminologies. But how does climate change affect the agricultural operation? So start from sowing to harvest, agriculture directly associated with the prevailing weather. So when climate is changing, so how the climate affects the agriculture and what are all the interventions or how to cope up the agricultural operation to face the challenges or the risk produced by the climate change and how to improve the production and productivity, how to feed the increasing population. So this is the real challenge at this hour and many scientists, many researchers are working in this line and we the extension people are taking those interventions to the end users and assess the success rate of those interventions. So some of them I will narrate now. So we need to feed the growing population. This everyone knows. But growing population means if we see the world population in this slide, in 1960 it was 3 billion. Coming to 2050, it may be 9 plus billion. So to nourish another 2 billion people in 2050, the food production must rise by 60% as it is now. But at the same time, we need to increase our food production. We need to feed the growing population, but at the same time, it cannot be at the expense of the planet. The expense of the planet means already we are almost exploited what are all the natural resources available with us, soil, water, everything. Our ecosystem are compromised and we lost our biodiversity. Along with this, the climate is also changing. Even a slight deviation in the temperature, a small rise in the temperature results in huge damage. So this is the scenario prevailing now. And how to face this? Before going to the topic, we should know the basic difference between weather and climate. We are talking more about this. But what is the exact difference between weather and climate? Climate is based on weather, and weather means it is short term. It prevails short term in a limited area and change rapidly and also difficult to predict. Simply, if you want to tell what is weather means, it is what's happening outside your window right now. So you normally tell, I feel sultry, today is chill or today is hot, it is raining. So what is the current system or the situation prevailing outside from your window? That is weather. At the same time, if the climate is the average of many years of weather observation. Suppose if today is rainy means continuously how many days it is raining, what are the dry spells and what is the rainfall and what is the frequency. Like that recording all the weather data and if we have that database for long term for many years then we can tell that is a climate. And climate prevails a wider area unlike weather. It prevails in wider area and we have the seasonal changes. Normally we used to define the season as summer, winter, monsoon. Monsoon again, southeast monsoon and northeast monsoon. Sometimes we used to tell hot, humid season. So like that, the climate will have the seasonal changes. Summer means the environment will have certain parameters like that. In each season, the weather data, all the parameters will have the change. And climate is measured over long spans of time. Already I said it is a long-term data. So with this, what is the global climate change? If any noticeable or identifiable change in the climate of Earth as a whole that lasts for an extended period of time, maybe decades or together. So if the change is noticeable, suppose if 1 year, if some changes happen, we won't tell that is a climate change. But if it is a continuous trend over a long period, then we are telling it is a climate change. And if it happens throughout the earth, then it is global climate change. So when due to the natural process, it is usually as global climate variability. And that refers to the changes caused by human activities, finally that change the atmosphere. So normally we used to hear with the people, 30 years back it is not like that, now only it's happening. So what are all the changes compared with the past and the present and happens globally, then we termed as global change, climate change. And this is a normal factor everyone knows. What are all the sectors or the major cause for the greenhouse gas emissions? Starts from energy sector, agriculture, forest, other land uses, industry, transport, building sector. These are all the major sectors produce the greenhouse gas, which is the cause for the global warming. So what is the effect of climate change? Climate is changing, but that results what? Normally, an average increase in Earth's temperature, visibly we are seeing that. Melting of polar ice. The polar bear and other animals are drowning. And migrating birds. Often we used to read in the papers. They are forced to change their place and time for migration. So what was the earlier status? Now it is not like that. Also, the melting glaciers leads to the higher sea level. That results in floods, and these floods cause the threat to the low elevation regions. Maximum that may be disappear underwater. And longer summers, almost Tamil Nadu, all the 12 months we feel like summer months nowadays. And average precipitation increase around the world. These are all the effects of climate change. So because of this, what are all the final results we are getting? Drought, heat waves, extreme winters and storms, hurricanes, typhoons, all this we are seeing now. So if this situation comes, this directly relates to agriculture. This will affect the agricultural farm operations. If drought means or heat waves, even in extreme winters, storms, the crop failure will happen or the complete damage of the field we could see. Like that, the emergence of new pests and diseases. This is in agricultural crops as well as in livestock, we are seeing. If this happens, how to maintain the production? No need to go for increase the production or productivity. At least we should maintain what we got in the past or what we are getting right now. So how to maintain that? Then how to increase the production to face the challenge of the feeding people. So normally, what is the impact of monsoon on crops? And along with monsoon, temperature and wind speed. If the monsoon is deficit, suppose the southwest monsoon or northeast monsoon, if it is deficit, obviously crop failure will happen. If it excess, that time also we won't get the actual production. Floods completely, the field will be drenched with water. Extreme events, no need to tell, obviously the field become damaged. Like temperature also, if monsoon is deficit as well as the temperature is high, that time also we can't take up the agricultural operation. And during the time of speedy wind, soil erosion will be there, and whatever the water irrigated in the field become dry, that time also the crop failure is the ultimate end. So these are some of the extreme events, increased frequency of occurrence. So starts from 2020 to 2016, I have presented here. Of course, from 17 to 20 also, There is no such extreme events we didn't record. So till 2016, I have placed the data. So the rainfall percentage departure, some data are throughout the country, some data are some parts of the country. And 2016, it is the complete drought year for Tamil Nadu, minus 47% rainfall departure, mainly the southwest monsoon. So 2002, if we see, it is all India drought, severe cold wave was there. Like that, either by drought or by high temperature or floods or warmest year. 2010 is the recorded as a warmest year. And failure of September rains in Andhra Pradesh, particularly one stage. So in some places, even Tamil Nadu, parts of Tamil Nadu, though the southwest monsoon starts from July to September, most of the rainfall will be in September, that is the late Kharif season. So like that, there are some states. Suppose if that late Kharif failed means automatically the farmers couldn't take up that particular cropping. So 2012 again drought in Punjab, Haryana, Gujarat, Karnataka, most of the states. 2013 the remaining states. 2014 floods in Jammu and Kashmir, cyclone, widespread hailstorms, everything. So 2015 it was unseasonal rain. During that year in September month, even we have the record to our district Namakkal, in one day we received 115 mm rainfall. So 115 mm rainfall in one day means the total Kharif season rainfall itself is 247, the average. So in that situation, if you receive half of the rain in one day, there's no use of that rain. Like 2016, it is a complete drought. So in this situation, how to bring the climate resilient agriculture? This is my topic. So what is climate resilient agriculture? I have placed the word NICRA since we have taken up this work under that scheme. So I want to give acknowledgement to that scheme. So I have placed NICRA. So the climate resilient agriculture is nothing but what are all the cultivation practices or interventions or technologies, what are all we are introducing that should be resilient to the climate risk. So normally the climate vulnerability is two extreme. One is drought, another one is flood. So the intervention should be resilient to the climate risk. And also the interventions are adaptive capacity to changes. So what all the changes takes place, to that the technology should be adaptive. So if we introduce such technologies, then that will lead to the increase in production and productivity. Finally, we can make the food security to the growing population. This is the ultimate aim behind bringing this climate resilient agriculture. Either the intervention should answer for the drought or flood. So when we are sourcing the technologies for climate resilience in agriculture, so we need some technologies and how to source that. Maybe the recommendation of proven practices and technologies from the local and regional research institutes. So particular to that climate or to the drought tolerant varieties, some pest resistant varieties, like that many research institutes are working on that. So based on that, we can select some proven interventions from that institutes. Another one, indigenous technical knowledge. Most of the farmers, they themselves have a thorough knowledge about the varieties in our local communities and organizations. And other traditional coping mechanisms evolved by local communities over a long period of time. That is, by their experience, they have some varieties. With this, we have to innovate agricultural practices emerging out of addressing specific local settings. So it may be from research institute or from farmer side or from our traditional knowledge system. So based on this, we can take up the interventions. We have to test, trial, then finally we can come to with some access. So this NICRA project, how we have did this, selected and operated these interventions means mainly the objective is to demonstrate the site-specific technology interventions in agriculture and allied sector to enable farmers cope up with climate variabilities in vulnerable districts. That is, vulnerable district means the climate vulnerability is severe. So we have to select such districts and demonstrate the interventions in agriculture and allied sector to create awareness and build capacity of the farmers on climate resilient technologies. And from that, we have to evolve the innovative institutional mechanism at village level. Institutional mechanism is, of course, extension people in this forum can understand. The rural institution, we have to form some groups, and through that groups, we can operate the entire activity. And some models like custom hiring center or seed banks, we can start in the village itself to meet out the needs of the farmers. And to foster the evidence-based planning and mainstreaming of climate resilient practices and technologies through various public funded programs. That is, what are all the interventions that we are carrying out through NICRA, and what are all the successful interventions? We may introduce number of interventions. We can't tell all the interventions are good or best. So what are all the real successful interventions that we can select that, mainstream that, and through various departments, line departments, with their funding, we can popularize or propagate those technologies throughout the district or throughout the state or wherever the climate, such climate vulnerability present. So with this objective only, the scheme was started in 2011, and this was the first scheme to address the climate change in agriculture. So in that way, the scheme is more important to talk about the climate resilient agriculture. So what are the modules we can work? So first, we have started with 4 modules. One is natural resource management. Whatever the activity, conserving the resources is there. What are the resources we have or available in that particular place that we have to conserve? Main 2 resources are, one is soil, another one is water. So rainwater harvesting, conservation of water and minimal use of water, and increasing or improving the in-situ moisture conservation. So these are the certain practices or interventions we introduced under NRM, Natural Resource Management. Like crop production, mainly crops and cultivars. So what are the major crops present in that, normally cultivated by the farmers in that village? And whether the crops are suitable to that rainfall system. And if the crops are suitable, means is there any improved reason varieties to increase the production, or maybe short duration varieties? Since these villages dry spells or more, no need to be stand in the field for a long time. So if the varieties are short duration or drought tolerant or pest tolerant with increased production, like that we can select the varieties. Even some places, diversification of crops, alternate farming. If paddy is cultivated more, then we can go for some crops that is not to the entire area, at least part of the area can be converted with certain other crops where the consumption of water is less. Like in a single crop, like more agricultural crops alone is cultivated by the farmers, mean we can think about the horticultural crops, even floriculture, like even the mixed farming, intercropping. So all such interventions, even integrated farming system. So those interventions carried out under crop production system. And livestock and fisheries, normally, even during the crop failure season, even in the monsoon failure season, mainly livestock play a major role to give additional income to farmers for a sustainable livelihood. So here also, the major interventions are feed and fodder banks, community fodder banks to maintain the health status of the animals, and some shelter arrangements or shed management to alleviate the stress to the animals. Like that, some interventions we can take up in agriculture and fisheries. And enabling support system is nothing but institutional approach. Already I said, we can start some commercial activity in the village, mainly to meet out the demands or needs to the farmers. So these are the major modules that we have to focus when we are taking some work in climate resilient agriculture. The same here also I have presented. So what are all the interventions that we can take in each module? Already I said in the previous slide itself. So now, so this was the aim or objective in NICRA scheme. Now the same we are going to propagate to other villages also. Suppose if you want to take up this type of activity in your place, means how to select a village. A new village has to be selected, mainly those who are working in the extension centers. This type of activities they can take up along with their general activity, because whatever the agriculture and animal science activities we are taking, and most of the places either it is affected with drought or flood. So it is utmost need of the hour that we have to take up the CRA activity. So a new village you can select, and that village should represent the district and climate vulnerability. Suppose If a district has tri-modal pattern, rainfall pattern, southwest, northeast, and some places of the district have summer rainfall. So what is the major area of the district, the climate scenario of the district? Like that, the village should represent the situation like the entire district. Then only you can propagate the technology, the successful technologies to the entire district. Suppose in case of drought, prefer the village with some watershed works. Watershed work is NABARD is taking, agri engineering department is taking, many line departments are taking such works. So if already watershed works are going on, then it is easy to take up or introduce many interventions in that village. And distance should be shorter, then only you can frequently visit that place. And but at the same time, you should not be on the highway. Predominantly, the village should cover small and marginal farmers. Of course, throughout the country, we are telling the same data. And community should be cooperative and participatory. Suppose if you are introducing some technologies, means the villagers should also be interested with that technology. Then only you can get a success rate in that. And adopted villages can also be proposed to the committee for final selection. So normally, whatever the extension activities we are taking, we used to do this type of work. We can conduct the PRA to identify the resources in that village. We can conduct focal group discussion with the farmers and baseline. Here baseline is village as well as household data we have to take by survey. So from those data, we can take up the action plan to match the 4 modules already said: natural resource management, crop module, livestock, and institutional module. Again, with or without irrigation. Like that also we have to take up. Then we can implement some interventions. Finally, we can read the impact, what happened to that intervention. And if it is success, then we can upscale that intervention to the remaining parts of the district. And VCRMC is nothing but Village Climate Risk Management or Monitoring Committee. So if we form a group like this, then they will act as a local leaders in that village between you and the villages. And here during the time of baseline survey, we can take up the soil samples with GPS coordinates. We can do the soil analysis, also assess the soil fertility rate. And organic resource inventory of that village, what are all the resources available, that also we can take during the time of baseline survey. So regarding the VCRMC, suppose you are going to form a committee, the Village Climate Risk Management Committee should have, at least normally, a group means we used to tell 12 to 20 people. We can have some, this is a normal procedure for all the groups, even if it is a self-help group or farmer interest group, many groups we are forming, the same method you can do like this. And what is the institutional model you are going to introduce in that village, like a some hiring center or seed bank or some other activity which can help to the villages, that also you can plan. And what are all the things happen in that institution that the VCRMC should take up and mobilize the fellow farmers for training programs and collective decisions. That is, for that particular year, what are all the interventions they need, what are all their demands. Like that, they should come forward with their proposal, and they should have the bank account. This is also common to all groups. So with this, now we have selected a village, we have conducted the baseline survey, now we know the village status, and we form the VCRMC also. Here, I already said the climate vulnerabilities are to drought and flood. From this point, I am going to talk about the drought because our work experience is mostly in drought. So unfolding the agricultural drought, one is rain-fed areas and the second one drought in irrigated areas. Suppose in rain-fed areas means delay in onset of monsoon. Southwest monsoon normally starts in July. Suppose if it get delayed, maybe the end of July or August like that. So that time we'll see the drought scenario. And breaks in monsoon and erratic distribution. Suppose the first rainfall will start. Later for 20 or more than 20 days we won't get rainfall. Automatically dry spells over more than 20 days will be the scenario. Or erratic distribution, one day high rainfall, more than 90 mm or 100 mm like that. Another day we will have only 2 mm, 3 mm rainfall. So this erratic distribution, these are all the status results in drought. And drought in irrigated areas means rainfall will be there, but insufficient rains in catchment areas. So what are all the water harvesting structures available in that place, that areas won't be filled. And insufficient rains leading to poor inflows to the tanks, and groundwater recharge will also be poor. In such situations, we used to tell drought in irrigated areas. So normally this drought relates to the rainfall. So here I have given the data only to my district. This is the 10 years data, start from 2011 to 20. If we see, it starts with 405, dipped to 329 in 2016. Last year we received 719. So except this 957, 735, 614 and 719 and here 1787, almost 5 years it is below, 4 years it is below 500 and 2 years below 700 and the remaining 4 years are good. So if the rainfall is below 600, automatically the number of dry spells will be more and also during the cropping season the crops will get affected. So based on the rainfall and again the deviations in the rainfall. In this picture if you see, the blue bar indicates southwest monsoon and yellow bar is northeast monsoon. So except 1, 2, 3 years, almost all years we have either one season deficit or in 2016 it is, of course, it is a drought year, 2 seasons deficit is seen. So if the rainfall, normal rainfall, if the deficit happens either in 1 season or 2 season, obviously that particular seasonal cropping will get affected. So this is what we are telling drought and how to manage this drought. Again, northeast rainfall. So in this slide, if you see, after 2016, in 2016 it is a severe drop, 85.76% deficit we could see. And 2017 is a normal year, both rainfall is good. And 18 also, though it is not good, but no deficit. And 19 and 20, the northeast monsoon, there's no northeast monsoon at all. If you say in 2019, there is no data. In November, October and November, at least we received some rainfall, but December total 0 in 2019. Whereas in 2020, if you take, October and November rainfall is less, December rainfall is more. So in this situation, if the fluctuation seen like this, how to take up the operation? Suppose the sowing means during that time we need some rainfall. Like in each stage of the crop, flowering stage or pod formation, in each and every phase of the agricultural operation, the rainfall should match to the stage of the crop. Otherwise, though the crop stands in the field, we can't get the yield. So these type of fluctuation, either it leads to drought or the water stagnation in the field. So in such case, what are the problems we are facing means, one is crop drying. If drought means crop will be dry. And if water stagnated in the field, even in drought also, we used to get the pest and diseases. Many new pests or different pests normally we have not seen in that particular monsoon or the period. Those type of pests also we are seeing now. So rainfall is important to the agriculture and the farmers should know. Suppose if you want to bring a climate resilient agriculture means the farmers should know what is the rainfall of that particular village. So every district have some meteorology center, they have some reading points. Suppose, for example, I'm telling my district, it has 15 blocks and they have in 12 places, they have the monitoring station and they are telling what is the rainfall of that particular block and total rainfall of that particular district also they are telling. But that rainfall may not match to the village level. So what village you are working, that may differ. Maybe not huge difference, but it starts from 30 mm to 70, 80 mm. Sometimes more deviation also seen among the blocks. So recording the weather data is more important to study the climate change. So either we need the manual weather station, it is cost wise it is expensive, unless if there are any schemes available, you can't go for that. But we can have the rain gauge, a small instrument, maybe around 6,000 rupees. So if we have such type of small instrument to measure the rainfall in that particular village, the villager, they themselves measure the rainfall. So what is the previous day rainfall, whether they can go for cultivation, what type of activity they can take up, or after seeing some 3-4 rainfall data, which crop they can go for. Like that, they themselves can come to a conclusion. So either manual weather station, and most of the places this weather station is in a defunct mode. If the weather stations are working, along with that, if we have such type of rain gauges, we can know what is the rainfall in that particular place. Through that, we can create awareness among the farmers, like we have a common board and we write the weather parameters prevailing in that day or particular week, like that. So if maybe the near place of milk cooperative societies or near the temple areas or the marketplace where the villagers normally gather together. So in such places, we can keep a board like this and we write the weather details so that we can create the awareness to the farmers using the climate information for the decision making. So from now onwards, I will tell about the 4 modules, that is, what are all the interventions that we can do to improve the production. So first one is natural resource management. Normally rainwater harvesting we used to tell. So at household level we know how to harvest the rainwater, and almost in all houses some structures to harvest the rainwater is available now. So at community level to the entire village means renovation of community ponds, establishment of farm ponds. Community pond is the ponds maintained by the community. Almost in all villages we have. If there are no community ponds, then we have to establish. Otherwise, what are all the damaged ponds that we can renovate? And farm ponds at the field level or a percolation pond. This is individual effort. This also now government is supporting. And clearing up of drainage channels. Whatever the ponds we establish or renovate, if the drainage channels are not clear for the runoff water, then there is no purpose of keeping so many ponds. And construction of check dams. When the rainwater is more, it won't get wasted. And what are all the harvested water available, that should be used in a minimal manner through micro irrigation methods and in situ moisture conservation practices. Finally, soil health. In soil and water are the 2 major natural resources available to us. So these are some photographs I want to tell. So some ponds what we have renovated in our places. So if monsoon is good, the entire area will be filled. The complete pond will be filled. So how much length, breadth and depth you are renovating, to that you can occupy the water. So previously it was only 13,000 square meter water. Now the area is 56,960. Like that, if you increase the pond size, obviously the surrounding area will be recharged. Maybe you can extend the area of cultivation, or the farmers will have the chance to irrigate more times. Suppose if a farmer could irrigate only 2-3 times, means 1 or 2 irrigations may be extra through the recharge of groundwater. And sometimes they can extend a half acre, instead of 50 cents, they can go for 75 cents or 1 acre, like that. So these are some works that we have done. Check dams. And this is also another pond. This is the drainage channel. So where the runoff water is coming, rainwater, those channels should be cleared before the start of monsoon. Then only you can catch the entire water. And this is artificial. This is a percolation pond, artificial groundwater recharge. Suppose if a farmer field is located in a low-lying area where the rainwater get collected, in that places you can dig a pond like this. So this is the top picture is a defunct borewell, and the bottom one is well. So both got recharged, and the well normally 20 to 30 feet water is available for 3 months. Starts from September to November or December. The farmer get the water in that well. This is also one another pond. So normally these are the 4 ponds located in the 4 sides of the village. So all the ponds got renovated. So in such situation, whatever the rainwater available, that will be stored in the village itself. There won't be wastage. There won't be any runoff water to the surrounding village. So before this work, 80% of the water will be wasted. But now maybe if the rainfall is too good, maybe 10 to 15% of the water go to the surrounding village. This is the situation. Like this, whatever the climate resilient activity you want to take up, before that, you have to strengthen the community ponds available. This is a graph showing how many times the ponds get filled in different years, in different seasons. This is at the individual level, farm pond. Suppose a small size pond, 20 feet length and breadth and 5 feet depth, like this. And now these type of ponds are established by the DRDA through MGRS workers they are doing. So this size of small farm pond can store 55 cubic meter water. So if the water is collected during the late Kharif and the Rabi season, automatically to the next 3 months, till February, the water will be available in the pond. So the farmer can easily take up some activities even after the Rabi season crops harvest. Some small vegetable crops land they can farm, or floriculture, like that, some small piece of agricultural activity they can go. And even during the Rabi season, they can increase the number of irrigation. And if the farmers don't have any irrigation facilities, suppose if the farmer has such type of farm ponds, they can irrigate to the rain-fed crops also. This is the percolation pond already I said. So like this, by many methods, if you harvest the water, then the next one is using the water in a judicial manner. So previously only we had drip irrigation, then sprinkler, now rain gun, laser spray. Laser spray is the best micro irrigation method for the short height crops, mainly the groundnut, onion, jasmine, like that. The short, if the crop's height is short, then we can go for laser spray. Comparatively, the time is less, water consumption is also less, and in a short time you can irrigate more area, so that the farmer can extend the area or conserve the water in any one. This is the comparison data. I don't want to go in depth to the data since the group has different people. Some may not have interest in that, so superficially I'm going. But in rain-fed villages, the major constraints why the farmers are not using the micro irrigation devices is at single stretch they cannot go for the irrigation. That is, the available bore water cannot be sufficient to irrigate to the entire field. So what the farmers normally do, they irrigate the water, they pump the water from the bore well, store the water, pumped water in a small ponds. They themselves have some temporary farm ponds. So from the bore well, the water will be collected to the temporary ponds. From the temporary pond, they go for flood irrigation. So from the temporary pond, if you need to operate this micro irrigation devices, the pressure will not be sufficient to that. This is the reason most of the villages farmers are still depending on the flood irrigation techniques. But now farmers are become more aware of these technologies. Now they are going for the permanent structure, like a well type, 20-30 feet depth. They are constructing the temporary ponds and they are pumping the water now. So slowly the area of micro irrigation fields also increasing. So next one is the in situ moisture conservation. That is the third point I said under the natural resource management module. So whatever the possible extent you harvest the water, then you use the water in a minimal manner through micro irrigation devices. The third one, whatever the water you are irrigating, the moisture status should retain for more time. Number of technologies are available to conserve the soil moisture status. This is a left side. This is the small soil moisture meter. Those who are working in this line must need this small equipment, maybe around 10 to 13,000. So we can read the moisture status of the field. What are all the interventions you made in the village? What is the soil moisture status in that places? Like that in the other normal fields. You can compare. Then only the farmers will be convinced. Because the soil moisture retention may not be the same among the soil types. Here I have given 3 types: red soil, alluvial soil, and black soil. Normally the retention will be more in black and not in the other 2. So what are the techniques we can go for? So this photograph is the ridges and furrows. If we make the field like this, ridges and furrows, and the water running through the furrows, the retention time will be more. And another one, ploughing methods, zero tillage. In some places without ploughing, after harvest of one crop, we can go for the second crop. And some places need deep ploughing to hold the water for a long time. And places where the rain-fed agriculture is more common, the summer ploughing will be the best technology. So before the onset of monsoon, if we do the summer ploughing, the field can catch the water available. What is the rainfall available, that will be held in the same field itself, like the left picture. And we can go for the technology of raised bunds surrounding field area, that is the border, or in between the fields also we can raise the bund like this. This will also act as a catchment area and catch the rainwater. And the next one is the compartmental bunded fields. And the down picture, contour bunding and trenches. Normally in hilly terrains, we could see this type of technologies, interventions. Making the bunding like the last picture. Small bunds also we can make, and with the rainwater alone, they do the agricultural operation. No need for the external irrigation. And trenches also. We can make the trenches like this and we can plant the tree crops. It will grow well. And this is the compartmental bunded fields. And biofencing. Biofencing mainly we do to prevent the soil erosion or stop the water within the field itself. Mixed cropping, like the height of the crops. If you see the taller and the shorter crops, if we can also tell the strip forming. If we do like this, this will also prevent the soil erosion. And in the field itself, if we have catch the water, suppose if we have a small farmhouse or a storeroom within your field, you can collect the water and store the water in such type of syntax tanks, and through this also you can do the irrigation. Another one to retain the soil moisture in the field is the mulching technology. In the top picture, if you see, normally in jasmine field, we used to prune the plants before the flowering season starts. So the farmer mulched the field with the pruned leaves itself. He no need to go for some mulching material from outside. With the crop residues available, he mulched the field, and very good yield he is getting every year. And the next one, covering the field. Some small crops like coriander or onion seedling nursery, when you are maintaining, to retain the moisture, we can do such a covering. And here also the vegetable crops, the crop residues used as a mulching material, and this coconut grow. And here, what the farmer is doing, normally he makes some furrows, and the furrows he placed either biomanure or the crop residues and close the furrows. Above that, the sowing activity will be started. So in such situation, during the time of irrigation, this biomanure or the crop residue retain the moisture for a longer time. This farm also, this organic field near to our KBK, getting good yield by doing these practices. And normally to trees, either coir pith or the plants like dentia or sunhemp, this is the dentia. So if we plant like this, it will hold the water and retain the moisture. And here also intercropping. The left picture is the black gram, and here it is sun hemp, and bottom is banana with cowpea intercropping. Here also the coconut grow mixed with sorghum fodder, and this is sun hemp. Or otherwise we can cover the trees like this, either by coconut leaves or the husk, or by planting some green manuring crops. Just growing the crops and incorporating the crop in the same field after 45 days. By doing this, the soil fertility rate also get improved, as well as the moisture status will be retained. So after irrigating like this, if we cover the tree in the surrounding area, it will retain the moisture. So out of all these practices, the major two practices we are following is compartmental bunding and summer ploughing, since this district is rain-fed one. So it increase the water holding capacity of the soil. So additional moisture level is 14% compared to the normal field. That gave the result of 20% higher drainage. And the crops won't show any withered status even in 25 days of dry spell. Suppose the frequency, the gap between the two rainfall is more than 25 days, that time also the crop stands good. And finally, in natural resource management, soil, two major activity. One, the farmer should apply the fertilizer based on the soil test. So soil test based fertilizer application you have to promote. And the second one is multigrain green manuring. Either brown manuring or green manuring is must. That is cultivating different grains, including some dentia, some grains, oil seeds, pulses, many seeds we can mix together, make the field green. After 45 days of growing, we can incorporate the plants in the same field. Then we can go for the actual crop. Whatever the crop you want to cultivate, we can go. So like if we do this green manuring, it will improve the soil fertility rate as well as the moisture status. So now the village is adopted by the agriculture department through the 100% soil test based fertilizer application. So the second module is crops and cultivars. Here nothing much important, mainly what is the major crop in your area. So for that crop, what are all the suitable varieties? Already I said how to select the variety. Mainly, since I'm talking about the vulnerability of drought, the short duration varieties. With the available water, how fast you can do the harvest, like that you have to take up the short duration varieties, pest disease tolerant varieties, and high yielding varieties. Like that, drought tolerant. So these are all the major factors you have to think while you are selecting the varieties from any research institutes or from the farmers' experience knowledge you can take up. And second one, crop diversification, where water is needed more, there you can think about it. Or for additional profit also you can think of. And the intercropping, some contingency measures during the climate change. Because already I said CRA means whatever the interventions you are implementing, that should have the adaptive capacity to the change. So there you have to do the contingency measures, and what are all the successful interventions, you have to go for upscaling, that is nothing but propagating to the entire district. So no need to look into this data. Only I want to tell here is, suppose if you are taking a variety, here we have shown the black gram variety. Diagram means how it performs in the normal year and how it performs in the stress year. Stress means drought year. So normally performing good is no matter. Suppose if the performance is good during the stress year, then you can go for that variety. Like this, you have to compare one variety. Suppose if you are taking one variety means for 10 next 8 years, you can go with it. After 10 years only, we can't use that varieties. So the next 10, 8, 9 years you can use. So in that period, you have to assess what is the performance in both the period, then you have to select the variety. So like this, what are all the varieties we worked that I have given here. And another one, intercropping. Here I have shown the groundnut red gram because we popularized this technology. Like that in your place, what all the intercropping is possible, or where in some smaller areas farmers might have already doing this. So such activity or what all the improvement you can bring in that, like that you can think about and do this. By doing this intercropping, along with the main crop, the intercrop, the yield will give the additional income to the farmers. Each and every piece of the land will be utilized. Also, whatever the irrigation or the water you are giving to the crop, both the crops will get benefited. So like this, if you're doing and you're taking some resilient technologies, means the next activity you have to do is popularizing the technology to the remaining parts of the district. Like that, we have taken up this work. And the graph we are showing here is the district average. So out of total area of that particular crop, how much we could achieve through this drought tolerant varieties. Like this, the upscaling should be there. And the final one is seed production, because every time we cannot get the huge quantity of seeds from the research institutes or from the National Seed Corporation. So producing the seeds by the farmers themselves in their village is the best practice that we have to promote to the villages. So like that, we have started this activity. We have started recently. Last year only we have started. And I also said the diversification. Here, onion is the major crop. Suppose in 1 acre, a farmer cultivates onion, means if he converts 20 cents of that 1 acre with jasmine, how the yield will be, how the water consumption will be, and how the profit finally. So like that, we have worked out. We have started in 2012, and now most of the areas covered like this. Like this, you can think about some crops in your place, and either by mixed or in a sole crop, you can go for crop diversification also. Here, compared to onion, jasmine water requirement is less. Also, compared to onion, the profit in jasmine is also more. But we cannot cover the entire area with the jasmine because for flowers, we can't get that much market. So onion is also needed, but piece of land can be converted like this. And another diversification we made with vegetables. Bow system we established and mostly gods. And now almost all farmers are cultivating 12 different types of vegetables in that village. Even after harvest of onion, if the field is empty, they can go for 20-30 cents with vegetables. And the next 4 months, because anyhow the next cropping will be in the Kharif season. So between the period, they can cultivate like this, get some profit from their land with the available water. And contingency measures, normally, what is the risk because of that vulnerability? Here I am talking about drought, so crop drying is the major problem. So how to prevent that? Start from sowing to vegetative stage. What are all the sprays that we can give to the crops that hold some moisture or hold some green to the crop? Like that we are doing foliar spraying of this pink pigmented facultative microbes or potassium chloride. Potassium chloride already many years we are doing. The PPFM is the Tamil Nadu Agriculture University product. We are doing this since 4 years. Like that, what are all the pests occurring during that time and how to overcome that. So this is the two major problems we face. And suppose if the monsoon is getting delayed, we can go for some polybag nursery or nursery management in a small scale. And after the monsoon, we can go to the larger extent. So like this, contingency measures also should be followed during that time. This is the protected cultivation. Government interest is also more towards this, but most of the places we can't go for this because the yield is not that much good. That is a process of growing crops in a controlled environment. Whatever the outside temperature, this polyhouse maintain the same temperature to the crop. That is what the crop needs, the same will be provided within the house. So, but mainly this polyhouse model is suitable for horticultural crops. This also we can go, but in our district we couldn't do this except in only one block which is nearer to the hilly zone. The temperate climate, it is tough to maintain the crops. So the third module, livestock module, what are all the interventions we can do when we are talking about the CRA? One is suitable breed introduction. Suppose if the farmer is having only nondescript animals, especially in small ruminants, you can go for that. Or even large also, you can inseminate the available animals with some good breeds if it is necessary. And some shelter modifications to cope up the stress, and doing some interventions with balanced feeding and fodder, green fodder production, mainly vaccination. So one work we have did in our dairy animals in that Nigra village, mainly some physical modification of the sheds, mainly the space allotment to the animal, cross ventilation, surrounding, we have planted the trees surrounding the shelters, and the height of the center roof covered with, that is, we placed the thatch roof covered with AC sheet to provide the life to the thatch roof, and fogger arrangement. These are all the small interventions we made with the dairy shed. And this is the low cost climate resilient sheds. Just surround with the roof, surrounding the sheds with the coconut leaves, just to give the shade, and the trees around the sheds. And certain practices. We introduced many green fodder varieties, but this one played a good role. That is multi-cut fodder sorghum variety, Coefus 29. And since the onion is the major crop, we made the onion crop residue silage. So normally the farmers used to burn the residues. To avoid that, we did this. And mineral mixture, feeding mineral mixture 40 grams per day. Water splashing, wherever the foggers are not available, splashing water over the animal. And to mainly to prevent the mastitis, we advocated the T-dip with the KMNO4, deworming and regular vaccination. So these are all the practices we introduced with the dairy animals, and we received a good result. Starts from lactation length, yield, fat and SNF percentage, and repeat breeding. Everything was controlled, and we achieved a good result. So if we see the graph, the average production we achieved was 6.15 liters in one lactation period. And stress also, we calculated the temperature humidity index. So almost animal was in summer season and hot humid season. Both the season we have calculated. The animal was in moderate stress. Though the animal was in moderate stress, due to these interventions, the productivity got improved. Even if you see the milk production among 4 seasons, though it is low compared to the winter and rainy season, but maintained to a normal status. So the farmers achieved by seeing the performance, most of the farmers purchase dairy animals. Now the dairy is the major activity in that village. And since the production is more, new private as well as government milk cooperative societies started in that village to collect the milk from the villages. Like that, in small ruminants, the interventions we made, or one is a slated floor, another one is the some technologies with the normal sheds, and vaccination and deworming. These are the only two technologies. One is housing, another one is vaccination and deworming we did. And here also the mortality rate got reduced. Also the body weight gain increased from 40 to 75 grams. So this is some comparison studies. In desi chicken also, shelter management with vaccination. Two things we did. But of course, all training programs we have conducted the farmers regarding feeding, breeding, and normal general management practices. What are all the practices they have to follow? We have conducted so many programs to that. So because of all these interventions as well as the normal scientific management practices for livestock farming, now livestock and poultry farming is a major activity in that village. And this one picture I wanted to show mainly, this is flood affected areas. This is not to related to our district. This is some other picture in some different state. Even in those areas also, this desi chicken rearing, native chicken rearing plays a very good role and give a supportive income to the farmers where the crop failure happens during flood or drought. Coming to the fourth model, institutional interventions. So this is the custom hiring center. So two things we are talking in the institutions, rural institution. One is custom hiring center, another one is seed bank. Establishing seed bank is not that much easy. Many constraints the farmers are facing, but we could achieve the custom hiring center in our Nigra village. the farmers, they themselves purchase the tractors and we purchase the implements through the machinery. So because of this, whatever the activity they want to take up, the timely operation become possible in that village. So they're generating some revenue also through that custom hiring center. But continuous monitoring from our side, we could maintain the center without any, of course, problems are there, but not much problems. Most of the places, the custom hiring center will be defunct. Either machineries will be there, driver won't be there, or all people are available, but machineries are under repair. So many constraints, whether it is from our project or from agri department, agri engineering department, wherever it is, most of the places, the custom hiring centers are, right now it is defunct only. So based on all the interventions, we promoted this IFS model in the Nikra village, and from that we are propagating now to the remaining parts of the district. Here the normal IFS and this one, what is the difference mainly is, we advocate the farmer to establish a farm pond in their field to hold the rainwater during the monsoon season. And we advise the farmers to go for micro irrigation. So these two things are important in this IFS. And what are all the crops that can consume less water and give more yield? And also the suitable crops to that particular place. Like that, we are selecting the crops, we allocate the land size, and advising the farmers to go for IFS. So groundnut, green gram is the rain-fed crops. Onion is the irrigated crop, or onion with jasmine, or onion with vegetables. Like that, during the Rabi season, the farmers will go. Along with that, a small number of goat, cow, and desi chicken. So by this is the stress here we have calculated around 2.33 lakhs the farmers are getting as income. And this is, of course, not related to climate resilient agriculture. Since Dr. Rathod asked me to give a light through this to this area, just I want to add this slide. Public-private partnership in forestry production. Even the farmers can think of such type of activity in their field as an income generation activity. So by this, the farmer get more income. Also, we are getting more seeds. That way, I wanted to tell this information. So though we are talking about green fodder production, most of the places, even not only the farmers, even the scientists don't know what all the green fodder seeds are available. Mainly the farmers are cultivating the grass type fodder, Co4, Co5, or now most of the areas covered with private variety, Super Napier. Like the are in rain-fed areas means Synchros. And some places are covered with Guinea grass. So this crop we could see. But cereal fodder, multi-cut fodder, sorghum variety, which is the 29 or 31, or fodder maize, African 12 maize. And leguminous fodder, we have hedge lucerne, fodder cowpea, Styloxanthus hemata, as well as scabra. And tree fodder, Agathian subable, we have the seeds, so I have mentioned here. Apart from this, number of tree seedlings we are promoting in our KVK. So we that is the farmers who have the interest to under the seed production, we select them, we give the proper training to them, we give the foundation seeds. So the farmer should grow the crop or the seed, and they can give the seeds to us. So we are collecting the seeds from the farmers, checking the physical purity and germination. If the seed pass in both the states, purity and germination, we are taking the seeds from the farmers. And after that, again, we purify the seed. There is normal general cleaning we are giving, then packing the seed, and whoever is needed the seed, start from our sales counter sales to different needy people in different districts and different states. Even in states, 8 states we are covering. We are sending the seeds through parcel service. So this is a major activity we are doing since 2012. And per year, on an average, 25 to 30 ton seed we are collecting mainly from farmers. We are not doing any seed cultivation in our KVK land. We have around 126 farmers under our MOU. Out of that 126, 50 to 60 farmers are cultivating and giving seeds to us every year based on the rainfall. They are taking in the crop. So normally we used to get seeds from 50 to 60 farmers. And suppose if we have more need or more demand raised in the previous years itself, we asked the farmers to go for area increase, or we are selecting new farmers. Like that, one of the important activity to our KVK. At the same time, we are supplying good quality green fodder seeds to most of the needy people. So like this also the farmers can think, and out of all seeds, especially the rain-fed villages, think for Coifos 29 or 31. The multicut sorghum variety is a drought tolerant, and with the available rainwater, they can cultivate the crop and get the seed, provided if the monsoon is good. So they can, in rain-fed condition also, a farmer can get around 300 to 400 kilos of seed in 1 acre. And 1 kilo is, we are selling at 410 rupees. So 15% we will have our processing cost. So the remaining around 360 to 370 rupees the farmers get per kg of seed. So compared to other agriculture and horticultural crops, this is one of the profitable activity the farmers can think of. So though we are talking about the climate resilient interventions in different modules, what are the challenges we are facing? Mainly availability of seeds. So we can talk about number of varieties from different research institutes or SAUs. But during that monsoon season, sowing time, availability of seeds is the biggest problem. So obviously the farmers, they are forced to go for the conventional variety, what they are already doing. Another one, suppose to alleviate that problem, if you want to start some seed banks in that village means, then also the farmers, they themselves could not maintain the seed bank in a correct manner, because most of the places, one season only they are cultivating. Suppose if they harvest the seed, process the seed, and it is ready to cultivate means, the next season they are going for different crop. So after that, after 2 seasons only, again they need the seed. By that time, the germination got affected. So because of that, farmers don't want to keep the seed banks. So to overcome that, what we are doing now, we get the seeds from the Nikra village, giving the seeds to our CFLD pulses and all seeds farmers. From them again we are getting and giving to the Nikra village. So continuously we can't do like this. It is better that the farmers, they themselves should come forward for this seed bank. Don't know when that will happen. If that happens, then this availability of seeds, that problem will get over. And emerging pests, based on the difference prevail in the climate, new pests are coming in new crops. Suddenly we face the fall armyworm in maize, then rugose fly in coconut, and cotton also. Every crop, now last 2 years we are facing problem with our onion crop. Like that, sudden emergence cause complete damage to their crops and loss to the farmers. Coming to the livestock side, seasonal availability of farmers, fodder. During monsoon season, they cultivate. After 2-3 months, the field become empty. And for that, they advise to go for silage. But most of the farmers feel that it is a laborious job. Though we are motivating the farmers, the adoption rate is very low. If these two get solved, then continuous supply of green fodder, either through green or by silage, may happen, but time has to come. Again, failure in institutional mechanism. Already I said how the custom hiring centers are functioning. Apart from that, there are a lot of internal conflicts and internal politics exist with the rural institution that that is one of the major constraints for the successful implementation of the interventions. So these are all some of the challenges, but the main challenge I feel in that village is increasing number of borers. So whatever the mechanism you play to harvest the rainwater by different method, either by community ponds or by local ponds or by micro irrigation or by draining, clearing the drainage channels, whatever the in situ, many technologies, whatever you are doing, if the farmers go on dig the borewell, if there is no water in one borewell, they are going for the next one. Each and every farmer have 6-7 borewells, that too with 1,300, feet depth. If we suck the groundwater like this, whatever the mechanism we play, finally it won't be a climate resilient village. So these are all the challenges right now we are facing. So we have to create awareness among the farmers. We have to work hard and overcome these challenges to produce finally a climate smart village. So for climate resilient village means how a village should be. Utilization of complete surface water harvesting potential. This we have to do. And mandatory groundwater recharge structures we have to create. Fertilizer use only based on soil testing. This we have to do. Instead of going for chemical fertilizer in a large quantity, they should be curtailed. And nitrogen application based on better products. Use of energy efficient pumps for water lifting. If this happens automatically, micro irrigation will come on a larger scale. And the sixth point is the must in climate resilient villages, no burning of crop residues. So it is easy to farmers to burn the crop residues and go for second cultivation. That should be strictly prohibited. Mandatory greening of wastelands with tree cover can be done, and maximum possible extent green manuring should be propagated. And water saving paddy cultivation, that is the seed propagated technology instead of that seedling technology. Wherever paddy cultivation is more, we can go for direct seedling. Or if paddy is not needed in those areas, we can think of some less water consumption crops. Even many places now they move to millet cultivation. Like that we can promote. And some areas where they maize cultivated, they also moved in Karnataka state, they moved for millets and alternate cropping. Like what I said in my presentation, many alternate cropping methods which consumes less water we can think of. And coming to livestock, mandatory vaccination for all seasonal diseases should be done. Feeding, housing, and manure management that emit least methane. This also we should promote in that village. And all farmers to have access to agro advisories through mobiles. It's almost now it is come in all districts, either meteorology center or DAMU or through government. Many structures are created and farmers are getting this information now. Appropriate weather insurance packages should be identified through now the PMFBY, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana crop insurance scheme. We have only thing we should motivate the farmers to get involved in such activities. If both the sides are interested and activities taken up voluntarily, there is no issue in developing the climate resilient villages. So only thing, always intervention should have the climate focus. There should be compared with farmers practice. So this we have to do. And multiple stress tolerant, suppose some varieties we might have identified already. New varieties are coming means again we have to compare that variety, how it performs in the stress year and normal year, and focus on water harvesting and link with efficient use. That also we have to do. Wherever possible, prefer the in-situ resource conservation practices, wider coverage at less cost. And whatever the interventions you are doing, don't give it free of cost. Maybe get the contribution at 25% in the first year, 50% in the second year. Slowly, the farmers will move by themselves in the third year. Suppose if you give free in the beginning or till the scheme ends, after that there won't be any continuity. Even you can't say it is a climate resilient village. No such intervention will be there. So wherever possible, not wherever possible, from the beginning itself encourage the farmers for cost contribution method for all the interventions. And except environment intervention, BCRMC resolution is must, otherwise the villages won't accept. Initially they'll tell us and later whatever the structures you have created, again that will be spoiled. So BCRMC resolution with the entire villages is must for the NRM interventions. Whatever the activities are successful, document it for upscale for the successful implementation. So based on our interventions, now we are in the process of developing the mobile app. Almost in 2 weeks time it will be over. Maybe in next 2 days I'm going to submit in Play Store. So after 10 or 15 days, if you put KVK Namakkal CRA mobile app, you can get it in Play Store. So I have given only the rough idea about modules and what all the interventions you can take up. But this mobile app will have the complete information. So those who are attending this program, if you have real interest, you can get it downloaded after 2 weeks of time, not now. Thank you. So if there are any questions, I'm willing to answer now. Hello.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now I request all the participants, if we have any questions, we can interact with our resource person. We can pose questions. There are few questions in the chat itself, ma'am. Let me read them out. One of them is Jai Raj. He's asking, is it possible to take up activities under NICRA in micro watershed level across the distinct? Just a second.
Sorry, please repeat the question. Is it possible?
Yeah, you can stop the screen sharing and you can directly go to chat.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jairaj. Am I audible?
Sorry, audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Tell me.
My question is that we are going to implement a NICRA project in Kerala, Kannur. So
Okay.
is it possible to take up the activities under NICRA in a micro watershed level rather than in a village level, because Kerala is having so many micro watersheds spread across the district? So is it possible to take up the NICRA activities at the micro watershed level, and the basic unit of Kerala is Panchayat rather than village? So,
Okay.
is there any issue in taking up the activities in micro watershed level model rather than the village adoption model?
So microshed water model, if it is necessary, you go for that, because now you are taking the microshed model in under NICRA. Is it really needed? You first think that, because last 2 years we are doing more activities under Jal Shakti Abhiyan. So
No.
all the departments, not only KVK, not only the watershed departments, even many targets were fixed for PWD and what is that, agri engineering, Tavdeva, watershed. Everyone is doing for this the watershed construction. So
No,
in
actually,
some places, the actual runoff water is also not available, because there should be some distance between the two watershed areas. If already one is existing, and if you're going to establish another one, means what is the distance between the existing one and to your place? First you think that, is there any chance for runoff water? Then you can go for. Otherwise you go at individual level, that is best.
no, yeah, I'm asking for the individual level only. Individual level only. Then only
Ah,
we can. Yeah.
individual level is must. Farmers should agree that, because in their field we are going to do that. So if the farmers are willing to do that, then you can go. If the farmer feel that part of their land is getting, because they can't go for cultivation to the entire area. Part of the
Yeah.
area is affected because of this establishment of mini catchment ponds, then you can't go that. You can convince the farmer, it is good, but it is must. No need for a farm pond. Even some ridges and furrows, broad bedded furrows, if they could make in the surrounding areas of the ponds, those interventions I didn't show in this presentation. Such type of activity also they can go. Some broad bedded furrows in the surrounding areas of the ponds, if they make, what all the rainwater fall in that field, that will be retained in the same field.
Okay.
Any other question? Are there any other questions from participants? You can ask.
Somebody has given a message in the chat. Experience of Super Napier grass cultivation and feeding among animals. Yeah, Super Napier is good. Compared to Combo Napier, the performance of Super Napier, that is the yield wise, we are getting more yield, and animals also, the feeding pattern also it is good, but most of the farmers complain the animals become lean after period of feeding with Super Napier. So in such situation, you have to check, is there any problem? Because now recently, we are receiving such information from the farmers. So we have taken one on-farm trial this year, comparing the Super Napier with our TNAU varieties. So maybe after 6 months, I can tell the answer for this question scientifically. But now I have only the farmer information. Because of that compliance only, we have taken this OFT now.
Hello, ma'am. This is Kavya,
Yeah.
research student. How to make aware of about the groundwater quality, ma'am? Like, is it groundwater quality is also matters, and how to make them aware to maintain the groundwater quality?
Groundnut.
Groundwater quality.
Groundwater quality.
Yes.
Groundwater quality normally get affected if the area is surrounded with any plant residues. That is, plant means here I am telling the commercial plants. So if more dumping of wastages, sometimes it may affect the water quality. Normally won't, but even I myself have some personal experiences with that. So crop residue management, not only crop residue management, all the waste management. If it is proper, then no need for. And the second one, if the farmer dig the bore well to more depth, that is more than 700, the allotted is 612, I think, by the PWD department. If it goes beyond the 750 feet of depth, then no assurance for the groundwater quality. So if we go like that, then we can't do anything. But with proper waste management and proper digging of bore wells, we can maintain, no problem in that.
But farmers still think that the groundwater quality is not much necessary. Means, like how?
No, if rainfall is good, no need to worry about that. If rainfall is good, obviously the quality of water will also be good. Whenever we face the monsoon failure, that time only. If farmers are saying, then it is your job. You have to motivate them. What are all the problems coming? Suppose if they test the water, if the EC is high, how it affect? Are you agriculture student?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a research student, ma'am. PhD.
Yeah. Then you better know if the EC is high or pH is high in water, how it affects, or the hardness, TDS of water is high, how it affects the crops. That you show with examples. Many crops we have the models also here. So if you show that, automatically they'll get accepted, or otherwise you test the water.
Yes.
And they themselves have the problem in their field. If there is no problem, you leave.
Oh.
Because whatever the minimal values or the prescribed values we are telling, most of the places we don't get that quality water. This is the situation right now.
Thank you.
Okay.
Majid ji?
Sir, yes, sir. If there are no further questions, please provide the vote of thanks to madam.
Yeah, thank you, madam. In fact, it was really a pleasure of having you here as a resource person. I also request you to please share your experiences. I think you had one good practice note published in ASA about the forest production. Because the participants are asking about it, or with your permission, even I can share with the participants they're doing better about this. And in fact,
Sir, your voice is not that clear, sir. Your voice is not clear.
yeah, can you go ahead?
Just a second.
Just a minute.
I request all the participants to mute their microphone. Anyone with microphone on will be removed from the group. Please continue, sir.
Yeah, in fact.
Hello? Can you unmute, sir? You are on mute.
Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. In fact, actually, Bidar has. Majid, you can continue, please.
Hello? Anyways, Prakash, sir, let me provide the vote of thanks. I think there are some audio issues. Ma'am, on behalf of the participants and on behalf of the organizing committee, I extend my gratitude, and we all express our gratitude to you. Thank you for being with us. And the presentation as well as the Q&A session at the end was such a treat. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Yeah, Majid ji, sorry for the
Always
trouble.
have to again with us.
Yeah, sorry for the trouble. Even thanks from my side also to madam.
Thank you,
Prakash, your audio is not audible.
Yeah, okay.
I have
Thank
provided
you.
the vote of thanks on your behalf and on behalf of the organizing committee and on behalf of the participants.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Let's join back at 2:30 for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Again, a humble request to all the participants: when someone is speaking, please turn off your microphone. Like someone like Sunita, I had to mute. This is not right. When you someone is speaking, please mute yourself.